Finally, we have arrived at the last stage of this picture, painting the old log or branch. As you can see, the look of this perch no longer matches the look of the bird. You may feel it's not as important to detail this as much as the bird itself, but you would be wrong. The two are inseparable, and therefore both need the same careful attention to detail and style to marry the two objects convincingly together. Each will then enhance the other. In many ways, painting this old weathered wooden perch is more difficult than painting the bird itself. All kingfishers look pretty much the same, but all old bits of weathered wood are different. In this instance, I like the look of the partly flaked off bark, and so I can use my imagination to make this feature more or less pronounced. I can also add extra branches, etc., as I see fit. There is no field guide to weathered timber that will tell me I have got it wrong. This makes things both difficult and unnecessary to reproduce every detail as you see it. So what I do when faced with nature's randomness is to try and get the same feeling of texture of the original object by using brush marks, sponges, splattering, etc., and aim for the same contrasts and tone achieved in the kingfisher. Colours need to be sympathetic to the painting without worrying too much about matching to the original colour. At least this is the case when painting weathered wood. Now is the time to take advantage of those first washes we did in part 2. I urged you to paint loosely and produce random brush marks using various colours and tones, all of which looked flat and probably seemed a bit pointless at the time. Much of the natural beauty we see in nature is down to its randomness, and painting randomly does not come naturally to most people. I look closely at these early painted marks with weathered wood in mind, and find the shapes that suggest the splits and textures that I am now seeking. Working with these marks means they are already random. Believe me, trying hard to be random is difficult. Once this process is underway, a rhythm develops with your marks, and gradually a convincing texture emerges, as, I hope, you will see as we progress through the video. We are at the stage in this painting where most of the mid-tone detail is complete. I am now applying lighter tones with opaque watercolour and will be adding darker tones using sepia to produce the same tonal range as the kingfisher. I have deliberately left my colours simple, using yellow ochre and a little burnt sienna mixed with designer white gouache for the lighter tones and sepia on its own for the darkest tones. Further mid-tone lights will be added using a mix of viridian with either burnt sienna or sepia and designer white gouache. Here I am using a dry brush technique with the opaque light tones to catch the tips of the paper, creating a mass of fine textured detail. The remaining painting process is basically one of adding some lights or mid-tones, then refining them with dark tones as you go. I Opaque lights are easy to soften out or darken with some added tone and vice versa. But do make sure your darks are not too strong. They need to be kept fluid and remain transparent to prevent areas of the work looking dead. One of the interesting features with this particular perch is the fact that a small section of the bark is hanging on. The challenge is to make this convincing by using the same techniques as before, but applying them to the bark only, making sure the changes are sufficient to enable the viewer to see this in a three-dimensional manner. So, the work begins again with opaque lights working through to the darker tones. You will see me using also a little mid-toned green mixed from yellow ochre and viridian with a little permanent white gouache. This will help the blending of the mid-tones from the lights to the darks in certain areas. This has been more difficult to describe this painting than the Kingfisher, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. There is a tendency to want to hurry this as the main subject is completed, but your patience will be rewarded if you persevere. I will show the full image in detail and final cropping at the end of the video. The image was taken with a higher quality camera than the one I use for videos. I do hope you like the final result. I also sincerely hope that you have found this series useful when tackling your own paintings. I started this series for my local classes as an insight to the commitment needed to paint in real detail. This series has taken longer to produce and edit than I expected, but I am pleased with the results and I hope you have enjoyed watching. Please feel free to turn down or mute the sound if you find it irritating. I know some people do. There will be no further commentary from me, so please enjoy the completion of this picture, and thanks for watching.